This is an electric car I've really been looking forward to testing, namely the new Skoda Elroq. In this video, I'll take a closer look at the car, both inside and out. And as always, I'll be thoroughly testing the built-in software and navigation system, because as a tech nerd, I think that's one of the most important elements in a modern electric car. And it's also something that can be a bit hard to assess during a short test drive at your local dealership. There will also be another video where I test something else that's hard to evaluate on a short test drive, namely the car's driver assistance systems. Because even though the Skoda Elroq here is built on exactly the same system as, for example, the Ford Explorer I tested earlier this year, which I was quite impressed with, well, unfortunately, there are some things that put a bit of a damper on the excitement. So remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video, where I'll also sum up my experience with the Skoda Elroq. I have to be honest and say that I've always had a bit of a hard time with Skoda. Back when I got my driver's license, back then, Skoda wasn't exactly a brand that young people aspired to. That was before the fall of the Berlin Wall and Skodas. They were these Eastern European junk boxes. I know that's not the case today, and that since 1991 Skoda has been part of the Volkswagen Group and therefore shares technology and platforms with Volkswagen, Audi and Seat. But for some reason that perception has just stuck around, even though in reality it's more about snobbery than about facts. I also don't think it helped that for years Skoda stuck with their old logo, which mostly looks like a certain male body part with wings. And yes, I do know it's supposed to be an arrow. But I've also been well aware that the problem was with me, not with the Skoda. I'm mentioning this because I've met several people who felt the same way, and I think it's time to put that perception to rest. Because as you'll see in a moment, there's really nothing junky about the Skoda Elroq. I think it's a really good-looking car, and even though it's just cosmetic, I really do think the new streamlined logo looks much better than that flying you-know-what. I'm especially fond of the new front, which, by the way, has also been added to the 2025 model of its bigger brother, the Skoda Enyaq. I've never really been a fan of the old Enyaq's big mouth, so I think the new, more streamlined look suits the car really well. The Skoda Elroq comes in various different trim levels and is available with 3 different battery sizes. The Elroq 50 has a battery with a net capacity of 52 kilowatt-hours, a 170 horsepower motor, and a WLTP range of 375 kilometers. One size up is the Elroq 60, with a net battery capacity of 59 kilowatt-hours, 204 horsepower, and a range between 423 and 426 kilometers, depending on which trim level you have selected. At the top of the range, you'll find the Elroq 85, with a net battery capacity of 77 kilowatt-hours, 286 horsepower, and a WLTP range between 543 and 570 kilometers, depending on the trim level. As of April 2025, prices start at 250,000 Danish kroner and go up to 375,000 for the top-of-the-line first edition model. I've included a link to a Google search in the description below, so you can find local information about the differences between the various models and trim levels yourself, and check your local current prices. The model I've borrowed is the Elroq 60, and that's also the one I would recommend as a minimum. It only costs 15,000 kroner more than the cheapest model, and even though the extra 51 kilometers of WLTP range might not sound like much, they're actually really nice to have. And you also get a slightly more powerful engine. Are you planning to go on long trips often? Or do you need to be able to drive as far as possible between charges? If so, then you should go for the Elroq 85 model. I've moved to the back of the car because there's not much more to see up front. The Skoda Elroq doesn't have a frunk. On the other hand, it does have an electric tailgate, and it also has a kick sensor. If I just wave my foot under the bumper there, it opens up. That's how it should be. The trunk? A good decent size, 470 liters, nicely squared off, really good space. Under here, there's a small compartment, just like in some other cars. Not super big here in the Elroq. On the other hand, Skoda has come up with a solution with a net under the parcel shelf here, so you can keep your charging cable there. That actually works really well. There are a couple of small shelves here on each side. There's a 12-volt outlet over here, so you can have your cooler in the back if you're going on a long trip, for example. And then on the other side over here, there's a button for the retractable tow bar. You just press it and it comes out from under the car. Super easy, and it's great that this is also an option. Of course, there's a split rear seat, just like in other cars, which can be folded down. And in the Elroq, there's also a ski hatch, in case you need to bring skis, long poles, or something else in the car and don't want to fold the seats down. The charging port on the Elroq is located here on the right rear fender. That's definitely the placement I'm least a fan of. I prefer it when it's on the left fender, or even better, up on the front fenders, because when it's on the front fenders, I have the option to drive straight in with the front of the car to a charger by the curb, and that makes it much quicker to just pull in and fast charge. And it also has the advantage that I can easily use Tesla's version 3 superchargers, which are the most common ones. I can't do that with the Elroq without taking up 2 charging spots. So if you want to use Tesla superchargers, that's definitely a downside. The cabin here in the Skoda Elroq also works quite well. In this model, I have this kind of fabric upholstery up here on the dashboard with some yellow stitching all the way around, and the fabric continues over here on the door all the way up to the armrest here and on the sides of the center console, as well as on the top of the doors. There's some material that's not completely hard, but definitely not very soft either. It could be a bit nicer, but okay, at least there's fabric all the way up to here. Up here in the front, I have a wireless charger for my mobile phone, and I also have 2 USB-C ports down here at the bottom. I have 2 cup holders, my gear selector, and my parking brake. And then I have a small extra storage compartment here in the middle. And down here underneath, I have a large storage compartment with a little tray that I can take out if I want things to sit a bit higher up in the compartment, making them easier to reach. On the steering wheel, there are real physical buttons. I really like that, and I also think it's great that there's actually a button directly for the steering wheel heater up here. Over here on the door, I have controls to lock and unlock the doors. I can raise and lower all the windows, both in the front and the back, and I can adjust my side mirrors. And in front of me, I have a small screen, just like we know from the Volkswagen ID cars. But this one is kind of tucked away in a little alcove, so there are no reflections, and it's actually easier to see that way. I also think that's really, really nice. There's plenty of space in the back seat here in the Skoda Elroq. Now, I'm not the tallest person, so you should try it yourself if you want to see how much space there is for you. But for someone like me, at 172 meters, there's plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. There are air vents down here, which is nice if you are prone to motion sickness, and there are also 2 USB-C ports down at the bottom here. There are pockets here to put things in, and there's an armrest in the middle that you can fold out, so you also have cup holders. The materials on the doors here in the back seat are even harder plastic than in the front seat. So a bit like what we know from Volkswagen, it's not quite as luxurious for those sitting back here. The software here in the Skoda Elroq is very similar to what we know from Volkswagen's ID cars and also from the Ford Explorer, which I tested earlier in the year. And it's basically the same system it's based on, but here, of course, it's in Skoda's design and Skoda's layout. Overall, it works fine. It loads the various things fairly quickly, so it seems like the processor is actually okay, which is nice to see. I have access to various things up here. Here I have direct access to settings related to the car, such as charging, assistance, parking, driving profiles, and so on. I can adjust my air circulation here. I can turn auto hold on and off, and I can see my assistant and deactivate lane assist directly up here. So if you don't like to use lane assist, it's great that there's a direct button for it. I can also go in and adjust the climate control if I need to leave at a specific time. That way, I can set a departure time, and the car will preheat the cabin. Over here, I have information about the car, and I can see, for example, status and data, and so on. At the bottom, I have my home button, and next to it, my media control, where I can control the radio, media, and so on. I have access to the phone, and of course, I also have my navigation. I'll get back to that in just a moment. And then I have these 2 over here, which look similar at first glance, but they have nothing to do with each other. This one is for when I have different devices connected to or paired with the car. I can select them here. So for example, if I have a phone with CarPlay, I can activate it here in the car. It has both wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And a really nice thing about CarPlay, just like it was in the Ford Explorer, if you're navigating, you'll get the next navigation point, like turn right, turn left, and so on. Up in the small display down here, nice. I haven't had the chance to test it with Android, but I guess it might work the same way. Maybe someone can let me know down in the comments. Well, the other button is basically for apps. Not that there are a crazy number of apps, but this is basically where I have all the car's settings. Here, for example, I can see information about the software up here. I don't know what is supposed to be here, but I can't find out because I'm not logged in. But down here, under legal information, it says version 301 up in the corner. So I assume that's the car's current software. If you're watching this video a year from now and maybe there's newer software, then some of these things might have changed. Or maybe new features have been added. So at least you'll know what it is I'm showing here. I also have an app here called Laura, and apparently that's my personal assistant who can help me a bit with the car. I don't know if it's her who's also on my voice assistant over here, because if so, she's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. But we'll get back to that as well. I don't need to go through all of them. Generally speaking, the software works well. Everything is responsive and easy to figure out. Down here at the bottom, I have direct access to my seat heating. It's great that I don't have to go into some menu to find it, and I also have direct access to set the current temperature and sync between the right and left side. Now I'll just turn off the climate control again so it doesn't disturb us. Right below the display there are a number of physical buttons, and there's actually a button called Climate that I can press, and then I go straight into the climate settings. So instead of having to press a menu and find it, I have a physical button to bring up the climate settings directly. That's actually a pretty smart way to use it. Well, one of the important things is the navigation. So let's go in and take a look at it. I usually start by navigating to the Opera, and now I'll do it manually first, then we'll try the voice assistant afterwards. I can press search up here, and then I can just try typing the Opera and see if it can figure it out. It's thinking for a moment, and it actually managed to do it. Theatre, we'll take that one. Then it pops up, and then it tells me. It will take about 50 minutes. It's 34 kilometers to the destination, but it doesn't tell me what my arrival state of charge will be. It is available, but I have to press one more time, and then it will show it to me down here. Exactly like it was on the Ford Explorer. But why on earth don't they show that information in the regular window right here, where there's plenty of space? It's a mystery to me. I simply don't understand why they haven't updated that. They might as well show it here too. It's the same when I'm navigating. So when I've started my navigation, I also can't see what my arrival state of charge will be, if it changes along the way. If the weather turns out worse than planned, or if there's traffic, so maybe I use less power. Personally, I like being able to keep an eye on it so I can see if it still more or less matches what it estimated when I started my journey. But I can't see that unless I manually pull it up here, and then I have to press once more, and then I can actually see it up here. But why on earth can't I just be allowed to see it all the time? I don't get it. There's plenty of space on the screen. It's of course nice that it's there, but unfortunately it's just a little bit more troublesome to access. They could definitely optimize that because the information is already in the system. Another thing we need to try is, of course, to go on a long trip. If I choose Paris, that's always a nice place to visit, and hit start, then it starts calculating my route. And it goes reasonably quickly. Not super fast, but there it is. And it has already included charging stops along the way. It doesn't ask me in advance if I want to include charging stops. It just takes care of it because it knows I need them. That's really, really great. And if I press over here, well, then I can get a list of the different charging stops, and I can also see how long I need to charge at each individual stop. But again, I can't see what it expects my arrival state of charge to be, or how much I need to charge up to at the different locations. The information is there, I just have to press again, and then it pops up here. But there's plenty of space on these screens, so why on earth couldn't it just share that information so I could save a click? I still don't get that. The good thing is that I do have the option to choose other charging stations in the area, so if I don't like the provider the car has selected, I can just press here, and then I'll be shown other charging stations nearby, which I can then choose between. The downside is that if I try to filter charging stations, well, I can choose how powerful they should be. So if I want fast chargers, then I would select those that only run above 100 kilowatts. But when it comes to filtering by providers, well, just like I experienced in the Ford Explorer, I only have two options, Ionity and then Skoda PowerPass. Why on earth don't I have all the other providers? Android Automotive, the Google-based system that I have in my Renault Megane, and which is also in, for example, Polestar and Volvo. Well, they have many more providers than I have here. And even the Chinese BYD, they have a whole long list of providers, including Clever and the different Danish gas stations and so on. I think the Germans could really step up their game here. If the Chinese can do it, then they definitely should be able to as well. Because in all other areas, the Germans are actually a bit further ahead. All right, now we come to the voice assistant. This is kind of my sore spot because I have a car with Android Automotive and therefore Google Assistant, which is probably one of the best voice assistants out there. So maybe I'm a little bit spoiled. For example, I'm used to not even having to say, navigate to somewhere. I can just say the opera, and then it says, yes, let's drive to the opera. It works super well every time. That's just not the case here in the Skoda Elroq. The opera?
Oh, I still need to learn that first.
Yeah, it has a lot to learn. Show the way to the opera.
Oh, I still need to learn that first.
Yeah, it couldn't do that either, but it can show the way to a specific address. You just have to say the full address. What it can't figure out are these points of interest, famous places, which it doesn't know anything about. It would be nice if it learned that at some point. But if I say, for example, show me the way to Ekvipagmestervej 10 in Copenhagen.
Okay, Copenhagen. Ekvipagemestervej 10. Have a nice trip.
Thank you very much, finally. So it can show you the way, you just need to know the whole address. What it can't figure out are these points of interest, that is, well-known places. And you could say that maybe Google is just better at that. Maybe I'm a bit too spoiled because I have Google Assistant. I just think it's really nice that you can say a well-known place and don't have to know the exact address, and then just have the car navigate there, because that's actually what I primarily use the voice assistant for. It's for navigation, because it's much faster to say a place than to have to sit and type it on the screen. Of course, you can also use it to turn on the seat heating or adjust the temperature, and in some cars, open and close the windows and so on. Personally, it's not something I use very much. I think it's much easier to just press a button to open the window or tap the screen to set a specific temperature. So if you're one of those people who likes to use the voice assistant for things other than just the navigation, well, in the Skoda Elroq you can both set a specific temperature, turn the seat heating on and off, and turn the steering wheel heating on and off. But again, there's a button for the steering wheel heating here. There's a button for seat heating right here, and I can set the temperature right here. So personally, I don't really need it. That's the end of part 1. In part 2, as I mentioned, I'll take a closer look at the driving assistance in the Skoda Elroq out on the road. So if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, now's the time to do it so you don't miss that video. And you'll be able to watch it by clicking right up there as soon as it's released. Would you like to support the work I do? Well, then I'd really appreciate it if you bought me a cup of coffee, and otherwise I'll just say, see you soon.